Hello guys and welcome back to another video. In today's video, my friends, I'm going to be testing the Spider-Man franchise on Radeon RX 6600 with AFMF enabled in the AMD graphics options. What we're going to do is we're going to test both the games, the Spider-Man Miles Morales and the Spider-Man Remastered on PC with RX 6600, and we're going to see that how these games actually run with AFMF enabled. Now, as you can see right here, let me show you the graphical settings. I am actually using 1080p 144Hz and TAA, no upscaling right now, and in the graphical options I am at very high. I've just enabled very high preset and turned everything to the maximum with only these traffic density and crowd density to very low, because these are the settings which actually impact the CPU and I don't want any CPU bottlenecks in this. The rest of the settings are just depth of field and everything, and chromatic aberration, vignette blur, and motion blur strength is turned to 0 just because I don't like them. And let's go ahead now into the game and let's see how this performs. So also guys, I forgot to tell you about the system specs I'm using right now. I'm using a RX 6600, which is to the not overclocked in any way, and Ryzen 5 3600, which is also on stock, and 16 gigabytes of DDR4 3200 MHz RAM, which is also on stock. Alright, so let's get into the game now and let's start jumping, shall we? Alright, so the game looks really good at ultra settings, and it's also performing very good. As you can see on the left hand side, I've just configured the game to run at more than 60 FPS all of the time, so just we don't get any kind of issues with AFMF, because when AFMF drops below 60 FPS, it actually causes some shimmeriness, not shimmeriness, but some smudges on the screen. It's not very smooth to look at. And I've also disabled FSR2 right now in the game. There is no FSR2 being used, but we will test it out in a short while. Alright, so let's just now go ahead and see, because I'm swinging a lot higher, and as you can see right now we're dropping at about 40 FPS, higher 40s, but I'm still not observing any kind of weirdness on the screen due to AFMF. So it's very playable at these graphical options, and as you can see the FPS on the top right corner, they're getting in about 100s, 110, 117, which is very close to high refresh rate experience if you guys want to still play this game. It still looks very good, don't get me wrong. In 2023 this game still looks very good, and it's also performing very good in my opinion with the AFMF enabled now. And yeah, so now let's get let me just try and enable FSR2 and let's see if that makes any other difference than before. Alright guys, so FSR 2.1 is now enabled on quality. Alright, and I have the same graphical options right now, and as you can see now we're getting about 70 FPS, which gets to about 140. Previously we were getting about 60, so it made it go to about 70, so doubling that we're getting about 140 most of the times, as you can see on the top right corner. Yeah, so we are dropping from a higher point right now, and as you can see still the frame rate is not dropping that much and going into about 120s. Let me start counting the FPS. Alright, let's see, 66, 67, and a very good experience. Yeah, so as you can see, you can just double the FPS. As you can see on the top right corner, you can just double that FPS and you will get to know that the game is performing very good. Oh, I just was gonna drop to the ground. But our character doesn't die in this game, so yeah, he's Spider-Man. He's not supposed to take any fall damage, otherwise every Spider-Man would be dead. Let me tell you that. Alright, so 140, 120, I hope you guys get an idea. About 65 FPS, which amounts to doubling about 130 FPS. Alright, now what I'm going to do is with FSR2 enabled, I'm going to enable some ray tracing. Alright, let me just do that and I'll be right back. Alright guys, so I've enabled ray tracing right now. Let me show you in the graphical options. Here you go. And in the graphics, where ray tracing turned on and both are at high, this is the lowest we can go. We can actually turn the object range lower than 5, but I would say 5 is good. And we're on the same settings that was previously, just with the ray tracing turned on and FSR 2.1 on quality. Now let me just go ahead and show you the performance here. To my surprise, this game is performing very, I would say, better than before. Previously when this game was launched, I tested it out on RX 6600 and it wasn't performing this good with ray tracing turned on and FSR 2.1. It was getting into the 30s, but maybe it will still drop into the 30s in some intensive areas, but right now it's not. And as you can see on the top right corner, we're getting about 120 FPS, which is very good in my opinion. 120, 125. As you can see, like close to 60 still, but that was a huge stutter, and I don't know why it stuttered so much, but yeah. So even dropping, now let's go to the highest building, but now we're at a very high spot, as you can see, and as you can see right now, getting about 50, 44, dropping into the lower 40s sometimes, because ray tracing is turned on and you're looking at the whole city. So yeah, dropping into the 40s, and it's not feeling that bad in the latency side, but it's still getting about 36 milliseconds. As you can see, frame gen lag is about 35 milliseconds, which is not very good. So yeah, at 1080p still it's performing very good with ray tracing turned on, so that's very surprising. I didn't know that this game is performing very good with ray tracing these days on RX 6600 at least. Yeah, so I think you guys get the idea. Now I'm going to turn down the settings, and I'm gonna go to 1440p now. Alright guys, so we are at 1440p resolution now. Let me show you the graphical settings here. As you can see, about 1440p resolution at 144 Hz and TAA with no upscaling right now, and the same graphical options to very high. Alright, I've just turned down traffic density and crowd density to very low, and that's it. Alright, and ray tracing is turned off currently. So let's see the performance that we're getting. Let's start counting the FPS. The game looks very sharp now compared to 1080p, and with FSR 2 on quality even, it will look very good. So I've started counting the FPS, and yeah, the performance is good, but we are now dropping into the 30s sometimes. So at this resolution, FSR 2.1 is a must, and you guys should be using that. But the game will become very playable, as you will see in a short while. At 1440p, the game will become very playable with FSR 2.1 quality and AFMF enabled. Still dropping into the 30s, and I don't see any graphical glitches or smudges on the screen with AFMF. I think it's improved a lot. It's still the same, like the input lag is the same as 30 FPS. That's what I'm feeling. So if you can use a controller, you can actually play this game quite well at these graphical options at 1440p. Now let me just go ahead and turn on FSR 2, and I'll be right back with you. Alright guys, so with FSR 2.1 on quality, you can see the frame rate there. So it's improved a lot. Now it's close to 60 FPS. Yeah, so at 1440p ultra settings without ray tracing, with AFMF enabled, you are getting about 120 FPS at 1440p FSR 2.1 on quality, and the game doesn't look bad. It doesn't feel that bad. The input lag is still very manageable. It's at 60 FPS. So this is the way that you guys should be actually playing this game in 2023 if you want to play it. Alright, so I think that tells you the idea for Spider-Man Remastered. Now let's see what Miles Morales is all about. Alright guys, so we are in Spider-Man Miles Morales now, and actually let me show you the graphical options here. I've enabled AFMF in the driver. As you can see, the frame rate counter on the top right corner that will actually tell you the frame rate with AFMF that you're actually gonna see on the screen. And we're at exclusive full screen 1080p right now, 144 Hz, and all of the same settings that were in Amazing the Spider-Man Remastered. We don't have Amazing Spider-Man. Just imagine if we had that. But yeah, on the very high settings, with ray tracing turned off and traffic density and crowd density turned to very low, because I don't want CPU bottlenecks. Alright, and the rest of the settings are exactly the same. Now let's go into the game and let's see what kind of a performance improvement are we getting here. So still getting about 60 FPS, as you can see, and I don't know why it's just popping a lot on the screen right now to go to the crime, and that was a huge stutter just there. Alright, so let's just see about 140 FPS. So the same story at ultra settings. Both the games are kind of the same on the same engine by Insomniac, and both of the games are also performing the same in my opinion, although this game also has ray traced shadows. So when I will turn on ray tracing in a little while, let's just see what happens at that point. Alright, and now as you guys can see, about getting about 66, 67 most of the times, but mostly about 60 FPS, sometimes dropping into the 50s, higher 50s, and I saw 55 also. So yeah, that's still manageable. If at 55 FPS, AFMF is very good, and it will not cause you any issues or cause you any input lag that will be bothering you. Alright guys, so FSR2 is now enabled in the settings. Let me show you guys here. FSR 2.1 on quality, and everything else is the same. I'm just going to see what kind of an improvement do we get. Alright, so on the ground we were getting about 80 FPS, 75, 80, in the higher 60s most of the times also. This is a grass, this is a forest area, or you could say garden. And yeah, in this area is very GPU intensive, so let's see. Yeah, still in the higher 60s most of the time. Sometimes I saw about going into the higher 50s. But yeah, that's bound to happen. The game is very dynamic, so yeah, that's gonna happen. Alright, so you guys get the idea. Hovering around 130 FPS still, 130 to 140 FPS with the FMF. So yeah, now let's turn on ray tracing and I will restart the game. Alright guys, so we are back, and now I've enabled ray tracing. Let me show you in the graphical options here. Alright, here you go, 1080p FSR 2.1 on quality still, and we're using the lowest ray tracing you can get. Actually, it's reflections to on, shadows are ray traced shadows are at medium and high, reflections and geometry detail. If I go lower, it will actually go to very high, which is not feasible. So yeah, high. I've restarted the game also, and object range is at 5, just like Spider-Man Remastered. Alright, so it's just an addition with ray traced shadows in this game. And as you can see, in the previous game, we were getting about close to 50 FPS with FSR 2.1 quality, and yeah, so this is not very playable. And with AFMF, now it's actually causing a lot of, I can see on the screen from my side that on my screen there is a lot of ghostiness behind my character and all the objects on the screen, and it's still okay, so now it's dropping into the 18s also. So let's just try and disable shadows at least. I think this is a setting that is different from the previous game, and let's see if this actually causes much of a difference. Yeah, so as you can see, with only by turning on ray traced shadows, we're dropping into the 30s most of the times. Now it's hovering into the 50s, also in the 60s, and let's see if it actually making a difference or if it's only just a bluff right now, because it dropped right here. Yeah, not dropping now. Yeah, sometimes in the higher 40s, but that's manageable. Close to 55 FPS is very manageable with the AFMF. As you can see, it's getting close to 90 to 100 FPS, so that is very good. So these games are getting optimized. I know when they launched, they were not very playable. Also, Spider-Man Remastered didn't have ray tracing on AMD GPUs when it actually launched. So they, after some patches, they actually were able to make AMD GPUs run the ray tracing options. So yeah, this is just a test actually. I don't think anyone is gonna play on this GPU with ray tracing, and ray tracing is not very good looking also in this game, in my opinion. It's don't get me wrong, it's good looking, but it's not very impactful. That's what I should be saying. Alright guys, so we are at 1440p resolution now. Let me show you the graphics here. 1440p and FSR2 is turned off currently. We are at TAA, and everything else is the same to the maximum, and ray trace reflections and shadows are turned off. Now, just as the previous game, at 1440p this game is also playable at native, guys. Native 1440p, very high settings on RX 6600, which is a mid-range GPU. It's very playable, as you can see, about 40 FPS, and hovering into the 30s also sometimes. Now input lag is becoming a little bit of an issue, but yeah, as soon as you will get in the 50s, it will be better. So yeah, it's not performing the same actually compared to the previous game. I think Spider-Man Remastered was better, a little bit better in performance compared to this, but it's still very good, performing very good. Alright guys, so I've just restarted the game, and we are at 1440p with FSR 2.1 on quality now, and rest of the graphical settings are the same. Now let's just go ahead into the game, and let me just start counting the FPS. and previously we were dropping into the higher 40s. Let's see if it has made much of a difference or not. It's about 60 FPS, 55. Yeah, 55 is very good. 55 is the recommended frame rate by AMD for AFMF enable. Yeah, we saw 52 also. I just saw it. The game is stuttering a little bit, so I think that's the issue. We're getting that low 1% lows and stuff. So yeah, that's a given for this game. Alright, 57, 58, 56, 54, 52 also sometimes. Alright, so looking from above, guys, as you can see, about 55, 57, 59 FPS. Looking at the city and looking at that building and that building, I think that's the highest building. Yeah, so okay, now it's dropping into about 40s also. So that's bound to happen when you're going to be going into a very intensive area, but still it's now performing very good, and AFMF is actually making a difference. As you can see, about 100 FPS. So I think that gives you an idea, guys, of how the Spider-Man franchise is running right now these days. And I wanted to get Spider-Man 2 when it launched on PlayStation, but Sony is just gonna do that. They're not gonna launch PlayStation exclusive games to PC when on the day one. They are going to actually, I know that Spider-Man 2 is gonna come out on PC, but it's gonna take a long while for that. So I think that does it for today's video, guys. If you like this video, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you're new, because we have many new content coming like this. And I will see you all in the next one. Bye bye.